Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are grateful to God that He has allowed us to be a part of this experience this evening. I trust that your day has been a wonderful day. God is always making ways for us and creating an opportunity for us to do His bidding. As the presiding bishop of the Eastern North Carolina Episcopal District of the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, I'm honored to welcome all of you to this very special event called Project 100 Voter Awareness. Throughout this country, organizations and various groups, fraternities, sororities, and other civic groups are urging the citizens of our country to vote. It is my hope that these groups, as well as this event, will inspire and motivate the people of this nation to vote their conviction. Now, I've labeled this event Project 100 Voter Awareness as an effort to support the objective of our denomination to get as many citizens of this country, and particularly North Carolina, to register and be motivated to vote in this upcoming election. Without question, it appears that the leadership of our nation struggles to understand, or perhaps refuse to understand, the plight as well as the concerns of this country. Of course, our nation was created to embrace all people, regardless of their origin, nationality, race, or religion. Perhaps there are people, places, and positions that people have sought to embody, but not all of us are willing to accept it. Yet as people of faith, it is imperative for us to receive all people, regardless to who they may be or where they may come from. God has given us the ministry of reconciliation. John Wesley once said, "Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, as long as you can." As voting citizens, we must be aware of what is at stake, not so much for ourselves, but for those who are already hurting more than we are, and will continue to hurt even more if we decide to maintain the status quo. Racism and classism are on the rise. Our nation is more and more divided each day. Health care for all people with or without pre-existing conditions is in jeopardy. Environmental concerns are being ignored because of profits for just a few. The morale of this country is at its lowest since the days of the Depression of the 1920s and the 1930s. While the COVID-19 pandemic has caused the world to be almost paralyzed, we still need leaders who are concerned about our welfare. The upcoming election is very crucial to the life of this nation. We will be electing people to lead us through the various challenges that are overshadowing this nation today. Moreover, the leaders we elect will be the example for us to follow in the next few years. I pastored 31 years, served as a presiding elder 5 years, and as a bishop 16 years. And I discovered that people will follow as well as emulate their leadership. Whatever type leader we see, hear, and watch will be multiplied as other people watch what they say, watch what they do, hear what they say, and go where they will go. We need good examples of leadership with good vision, godly values, and a gracious voice for the people of God. My friends, as we approach this upcoming election, I urge all of us to stay focused, serve faithfully, and stand firm on the principles and values of our faith. Do not be weary of evildoers. Vote them out of office. I'm grateful to God to share in this experience tonight some other leaders of our church, and particularly of the CME Church, Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. And at this time, I'm going to ask Bishop James Walker, Carolina Region of Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, to lead us in prayer.
Thank you, Bishop Monroe. Let us bow for a moment of prayer. Lord, tonight we lift up our eyes to the God of every nation. And though there be some ethnicities and tribes that do not know you by name, you know all of us, and you have loved us with an everlasting love. Thank you for this evening, for shepherds after your own heart, for leaders who seek your face and heed your voice by attending to the cries of the needy and by hearing the cries against calculated and sometimes state-sponsored injustice. Thank you for enabling bishops like Senior Bishop Battle, Bishop Monroe, and Bishop Crenshaw to see the need for us to be empowered by coming together. Thank you that in the midst of an ever-spreading and increasingly lethal pandemic, your word reminds us that there is a balm in Gilead. And we bless you for in the midst of an impending economic trouble, you remind us that through our vote, we are indeed seeking the peace of our cities and of our nation. So tonight, Lord, we reject the spirit of spectatorship, and we ask that you would deputize us, make us ambassadors, heralds, and messengers. Make us your trumpets that we might raise up our voice and raise up persons who will be counted on November 3rd. Make us ambassadors of civic engagement, for just as your will is done in heaven, America needs your will to be done right here and right now. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. We're grateful to God for Bishop Walker, and now we're going to ask Bishop Crenshaw, the president of the Board of Bishops of the AME Zion Church, to speak to us about the purpose of Project 100 voter registration.
Thank you, Bishop Monroe, to Bishop Monroe, and to our senior bishop, Bishop Battle, to Bishop James Walker, and other Episcopal colleagues who are on the line, to Governor Cooper and congressional leaderships, Chief Justice Beasley, Reverend clergy, distinguished laity, brothers and sisters, good evening. Project 100 is progressing well. The initial intent of having every eligible voter in the AME Zion Church vote has expanded. We are still working tirelessly to engage all of our churches and urge them to develop a voting plan, which includes registering to vote, registering others to vote, registering absentee ballots, and planning how to cast their ballots. We are also working across denominations and cultures to involve all in the voting process, which I will explain more shortly. The model we created has been adopted by many other institutions, to include the Poor People's Campaign for Moral Clarity. The Project 100 booklet provides information that is useful in carrying out our purpose. It includes sections on who's eligible, age, returning citizens requirements, sections on how to vote, where to vote, when to vote, researching candidates and their issues, protecting the vote, educating ourselves and others on the voting process, empowering others through training sessions via Zoom, conference call, and small gatherings Of course, they're based on the CDC guidelines and local government adherences, reporting voter suppression, and becoming courageous crusaders for the cause of voting. We've also asked every presiding elder, because voting is a grassroots project, we've asked every presiding elder at their quarterly conference to examine every church roll to receive every member's voting plan, whether they intend to vote by mail or whether they intend to vote by person. If they have persons who are in nursing home, take them an absentee ballot. If they have persons who are incarcerated and have not been convicted of a felony yet, take them a ballot. Currently, we are hosting weekly meetings from all presiding elders, political actions committee, and social involvement personnel from across all of our Zion to inform, inspire, and instill a sense of urgency concerning the state of our country, the state of our communities, and the state of our democracy. We are encouraging voting early by absentee ballot or early in-person voting. We can make a profound difference if we teach people to be informed voters by knowing the candidates' platforms and the legislation that is on the ballot. We must understand that local government and laws have the greatest impact on our lives and how we live. Voting on every level of ballot issues affect everyday life and generations to come. For example, Supreme Court justices, criminal justice reform, environmental safety nets, affordable housing, living wage, equity, not just equality, quality education, and etc. All of these things can be traced to the focal point of voting and civic engagement. Our very lives depend on the outcomes of elections. We are elated that through our video messaging, we have been able to reach across the United States culturally and intergenerationally. We have distributed videos across the connection in both English and Spanish by both seasoned and young members of Zion in our communities. We are using leaders and laity that are involved in other major ministries in these instructional and informative videos. These videos urge persons across the diaspora to vote using our sororities and our fraternities of the Divine Nine, congressional representation, and HBCU alumni. We are encouraged that we are helping to develop civic leaders through Project 100's impact in the faith community. This level of civic leadership involvement through Project 100 goes beyond just the November elections, but ushers in informed, educated, and engaged people in the fight for democracy and causes good trouble. We believe Project 100 is creating a solidarity of the importance of voting our conscience. Faith leaders and faith communities are the centerpieces of change. If we exercise our influence, operate our power to vote, and work diligently to make voting in the 2020 election and beyond a priority. More than anything, we are seeking God's divine guidance in the outcome of this election. And on September 25th, 2020, we launched our 40 days of prayer and fasting that will conclude on November 3rd, 2020. Our faith and our works will yield results in this upcoming election. Everyone is encouraged to join us in bombarding heaven with prayers for every eligible voter to register and to vote early. Thank you, Bishop Monroe, for this forum. Thank you for embracing Project 100, and thank you for your stellar leadership in our denomination. May God bless you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to join you today, and thank you for your steadfast commitment to the values of faith and of our values as a nation. Our nation at its best: service, grace, humility, and love. This is a challenging moment for our country and for congregations and communities facing hardship and pain. The Psalms tell us that weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. There's no question that the night feels endless right now, exhausting, heartbreaking, almost impossible to endure for so many families. You know, when the words, "I can't breathe," echo in our nation's conscience, when the brunt of every crisis of illness, violence, injustice, economic hardship falls disproportionately on Black and brown shoulders, when our president seeks to tear Latino families from our national fabric, literally ripping children out of their mother's arms at the border to intimidate people not to come forward, when his reckless words subject Asian Americans to racism and violence, when Native communities continue to be disrespected and suffer threats to their existence, when families are torn apart, refugees denied safe harbor, and an unconscionable number of Americans are forced to take their final breath alone, away from their families, the ones they love. The night's long, but the joy cometh in the morning, and it is our charge to deliver America to that new dawn. We must dedicate ourselves anew, as my friend John Lewis and giants before us have done, to turn our grief into purpose, turn our faith into action. Together we can rip systemic racism and injustice out by the root from every law, policy, every institution, every place where it festers. You know, it's been in our darkest moments of despair when we've made some of the greatest progress as a nation. Congregations around the country have lived that truth. So let us persevere together to pursue righteousness and peace and to heal this nation. Let us remember the Lord's words in the book of Isaiah. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint. It's time. It's time. It's long past time. And thank you. Thank you for your purpose and your faith. And may God bless you all. And may God bless America.
We're grateful to God for the message from former Vice President Joe Biden. Of course, he will be on later on this evening in a debate. And it is our hope that we all will be able to join, or at least be able to listen to that debate tonight. Our next speaker will be the governor of North Carolina. I trust that he's on. He's the 75th governor of the state of North Carolina, a former attorney general, and is a native of Nashville, and that's North Carolina, part of the eastern North Carolina region. If he's available, I've asked that he would come now. Governor Roy Cooper. Okay, he's not available. Okay, it's Congressman Butterfield of the 1st Congressional District of the North Carolina, former Supreme Court judge, a graduate of the HBCU, and a native of Wilson as a part of the Eastern North Carolina Episcopal area. Congressman Butterfield.
Thank you, Bishop. To Bishop Kenneth Monroe and to our senior bishop, my friend of 40 plus years, Bishop George Battle Jr., thank you so very much for your friendship, and to the other bishops and presiding elders and pastors. Let me just say thank you for your willingness to assemble these wonderful people this evening for this conversation. As you certainly know, I have served in Congress now for 16 long years. I've been involved in every North Carolina election beginning in 1968. But please know this is the most consequential election of our lifetime. Failure is not an option. The eyes of the nation are on us here in North Carolina. We are a battleground state ×3. Let me tell you what I mean by that when I say ×3. We are first a battleground state to win 4 congressional seats, so that our House delegation is 7-6 in favor of Democrats. All four of our congressional nominees in the new districts are women. 2 of those are African-American women, Pat Timmons-Goodson in District 8 and Cynthia Wallace in District 9. It's important for the North Carolina delegation to compose more Democrats than Republicans, because if the Electoral College outcome is disputed, and some say that it will be disputed, it will be the House of Representatives that will resolve the dispute. And each state will get 1 vote, and the party with the most members will control the 1 vote for that state. And so it's critically important that these 4 women win this election. We are also a battleground state for the United States Senate. Democrats need to have a net gain of 3 Senate seats in the United States that have a functioning majority. Right now, we have 47 Democratic senators and 53 Republican. We need a net of 3. And so we are a battleground state for the Senate race. That's why our Senate race has become the most expensive race in the nation. If I were to tell you how much money is being spent in that race, you will fall out of your seat. Our candidate, Cal Cunningham, may speak later in the program. Finally, my brothers and sisters, we are a battleground state for the presidential election. Though Hillary Clinton won the 2016 popular vote by some 3 million votes, she was denied the victory because of the Electoral College vote. She narrowly lost 3 states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, narrowly lost 3 states for a total of 77,000 votes, 4 votes per precinct. And you know what resulted. And so my friend, and hopefully your friend, Joe Biden, is our standard bearer. I listened to his video just a few moments ago, and it was a very powerful video. That is vintage Joe Biden, a man that I've known for many, many years. You know, friends, I have never seen a presidential candidate publish in a document in clear detail a plan for Black America. You should read it. It's called Lift Every Voice. Go to joebiden.com/Black America. It is a powerful document, and we will hold him to it. And so we must have a 100% turnout in this election. Now, I'm not worried about those of you on this call, not worried one bit about you on this call or your families. I'm worried about the low propensity voters in our congregations and in our communities. And that's why I'm so impressed, Bishop Crenshaw, with Project 100. It is a powerful, well-planned program. Please develop a plan to reach every voter you possibly can reach, and let them know that this election is really, really important, and it really matters. As Bishop Crenshaw said, we are suggesting that voters, if possible, cast an in-person early vote instead of an absentee vote. so it won't be any confusion about the delivery of the mail. Early voting starts on October 15th and will go for 17 days until October 31st. But if our friends and our church folk and family members just refuse to vote in person, absentee voting is always available to them if they are unwilling to go in person. And so I want to thank you, Bishop, for your sensitivity. Thank you for your willingness to include all of us on this call. Thank you for including Chief Justice Sherry Beasley. And this is probably the 20th call I've been on with her in the last 2 weeks. But thank you so very much for including all of us in this conversation. Because as I said at the top, this is the most consequential election of our lifetime. Now, Bishop, let me, as I close, mention to you that Congressman Jim Clyburn called me just before I came on the call to ask me to express his regrets for not being able to be a part of the call. As you know, he is a senior member of Congress and very involved with the Biden campaign, and he has been called upon to give some pre-debate comments on national television tonight. And so Congressman Jim Clyburn has asked that I send to you his best wishes. Thank you, Bishop. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Congressman Butterfield. Just before I had introduced Governor Cooper, and we're grateful to know that he was able to join us. As I say, he's the 75th governor of the state of North Carolina, and I present him now to come with his greeting.
Thank you, Bishop. And I'm so excited about Project 100 at the AME Zion Church, and grateful for this opportunity to speak with all of you tonight. I think our faith leaders now are even more important in trying times. I know that my pastor at my church and many pastors throughout the state have provided guidance to me and have lifted my spirits in times of trouble. And I know one thing that most of us have missed. We've missed the gathering in our churches in person. We've missed the preaching, the hugging, the singing, the communion, the bonding that comes when we are physically together in our church. I've served as a church elder and deacon and Sunday school teacher for decades. I know how important that is to me and how important that is to the life of the church. But there is a fundamental tenet of our faith that we are to love and care for one another. And you church leaders have been doing that very thing by making sure that your services for the most part have been virtual and that you're keeping members of your congregations physically safe. Thank you for doing that. And we will come out of this stronger on the other side. So we here now are in the middle of a global pandemic. In addition to that, many of our fellow North Carolinians have suffered from natural disasters, hurricane, tornado, flooding. Even the first earthquake in years in North Carolina has occurred. On top of that, the death of George Floyd and other Black lives has opened painful wounds, and it is increasing the call for justice, racial equity, and fighting systemic racism. All that is happening. And in the middle of that, we have, as my good friend Congressman Butterfield described, the most consequential election of our lifetime. With all of this going on, when people's lives are at stake, what kind of leaders are we going to elect? Are we going to elect leaders who value public education and the opportunities it can bring us and want to invest in education from cradle to career? Are we going to elect people who understand that it is critical that every person have health care. I was sitting with a child care worker the other day who was mourning the death of a coworker who had died of a stroke. She had been treating herself, her high blood pressure, with home remedies because she had no health insurance. If North Carolina had expanded Medicaid, she might be alive today. Working North Carolinians, healthcare workers, construction workers, people who don't have health insurance now could get it if this state simply expanded Medicaid, said one word yes, just like Indiana did when Mike Pence was governor and like 39 other states have done. Are we going to elect leaders who value diversity, who believe truly that diversity makes us stronger, who believe that our local, state, and federal governments should look like the people that they serve and protect? Are we going to elect leaders who see the obvious disparities in communities of color, who want to root out racism, and who know this pandemic is real? We need to elect those kinds of people. And this project that you are putting together is going to be critical. You're going to hear from Chief Justice Sherry Beasley. I'm so proud that I appointed her as the Chief Justice of our Supreme Court, and she and many other judges are on the ballot. We need to vote for them. We also have a Council of State. I need help in Raleigh. We need to vote for our strong Council of State, including Yvonne Lewis Holley as Lieutenant Governor, who could cast the deciding vote if the state Senate ends in a 25-25 Democratic-Republican tie. We need to send the 51st Democratic U.S. Senator to Washington in Cal Cunningham. We need to make sure that we have a different legislature in January of 2021, and we can do that in this election. And yes, I'm asking for your help as re-election for governor of North Carolina. And I want to be sure that North Carolina is the state that elects Joe Biden as president. All of that is before us. And all of that is in the hands of everyday North Carolinians like people in your congregations. Sometimes people get frustrated and say, it really doesn't matter if I vote, it's not going to make a big difference in my life. I always want people to vote, believe people should vote, but I can understand that feeling that a lot of people have. But this year, there has never been a bigger difference in the quality and character of the candidates from top to bottom than this election. This election will make a difference in people's lives. So I would ask you to tell your congregation, just like Congressman Butterfield said, that the best thing to do is to vote early in person. And I wouldn't pick the first day. The first day you can do that is October the 15th. And there are going to be a lot of people who are excited and go to vote that day. And if you're really trying to avoid crowds, probably wait until the 16th or after. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, make sure that you vote absentee. And you can either mail in that absentee ballot, or you can take it down to the Board of Elections. Either way. And there are people who can help fill out that ballot, make sure that it's signed correctly and witnessed correctly, and instructions on how to do that. And you notice I didn't mention Election Day. And if you hadn't done either one by Election Day, you got to go vote on Election Day in person. But let's try to get people to do the first two things first. This Project 100 can make a difference. And I wanted to come on tonight to thank you for all of you're doing, the sustenance you're providing, the spirit you're providing, the leadership that you're providing in times of trouble, in times of woe, where we're losing people to this virus, where people are having healthcare challenges, where people face discrimination, when people are hungry when parents are having to deal with children being out of school and juggling their work, people who've lost their jobs, you are there to provide a place to lean on, those everlasting arms, where you are the voice of God and where you can show God's love to everybody. I'm so grateful for you and this chance to be with you tonight. And I wish all of you Godspeed. And let's just make sure that voices are heard in this election. Thank you, Bishop, for the opportunity to say hello to everybody.
Right. Thank you, Governor. And we are grateful to you for your presence and the contribution you have made in our state and will continue to do in the future. We had planned a program that would include a lot of people. They're on their way and they're not here yet. Now, if I was able to be face to face, I probably would call on the choir to sing something right now until something happened, but we're not able to do that right now. So I'm going to ask Bishop James Walker of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. He and I served together in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a very important personality in the Hartford community and continues to be. And so I'm going to ask Bishop Walker to come and greet us at this time.
Thank you, Bishop Monroe. And again, it is a pleasure to be in your presence, as well as to be in the presence of all of these distinguished bishops, Bishop Crenshaw, Chairman, as well as Senior Bishop. We thank God for you both, Senior Bishop Battle. It is also just an esteemed honor anytime I can be in the presence of our great legislative leader, Dr. Butterfield. That's a win. That's always a win. And then to see the face of our beloved governor, all I can say is thank God for this opportunity. Let me share a few words. The first thing that I would say is that there's good news. And I bring you greetings from the CME Church, our Senior Bishop Reddick, and I want to start off with good news. And the good news is that 2020 has, for the most part, been an experience that has had horrific consequences. We've lost a lot of people in 2020. 2020 has been a challenge for businesses as well as church, but there is good news. 2020 can be redeemed by our efforts. So I'm praying that we will have the kind of voter turnout for the candidate of our choice in 2020 that will make a difference, and we can end this year. Somebody needs to say amen on a highly positive note. So that's my good news to begin with. We want to end this year. Amen. We want to end this year on a great note. The next thing that I would like to say about the voter effort is Bishop Crenshaw, magnificent. Thank you so much. I was writing as fast as I could, and then I said, okay, I'm going to just ask my brother for the plan. But that was excellent. And I would say to us, make it count. Make it count in 2020. Make sure, because there's a lot of, there will be a lot of mailed-in ballots that we do. There will be a lot of absentee ballots. Make sure it's right. Take the time to make it count. Don't be disqualified. Don't go through the effort without making sure that your ballot, that your vote counts. Make it count in 2020. The next thing that I would like to say as I kind of bring this to a close is that we can do this because we've done it before and we can do it again. Let me ask you to just, we've heard all of the noise about the great turnout that happened in 2016, but I just want you to think about us and our efforts. I want you to think about a state like Michigan, and don't count on me because I was jotting down the figures, and I believe these are, for the most part, correct. But in a state like Michigan, where the white vote increased by 1.4%, 1.4%, that was the increase. That was the increase. You know the problem? The problem was the African-American vote decreased by 7%. That was the problem. In states like Wisconsin, the white vote actually decreased by 1%. Decreased by 1%, but the Black vote decreased by 16.5. 16.5. Pennsylvania, the white vote increased by 1.2%, but our vote decreased by 2.2%. North Carolina, the white vote decreased by 3.2%. I believe I'm correct. Our vote decreased by 12.2. So I want to say to us, we can do this because we can rise from where we were in 2016 to where God needs us to be in 2020. So as I ask you to think with me about that, I ask you simply to just imagine what God is going to do when we choose, when we make the selection, when we decide that we are actually the people who will make the choice. We are the people who will make the decision. We will be empowered. We will feel enough about ourselves to say that we will take this decision in our own hands and we will decide our destiny in 2020. 2020 has great possibilities. Let's come together in profound ways and let's make this a great year. Let's end it on a high note. God bless you and keep you.
Thank you, my friend and brother, Bishop James Walker of the Christian Methodist Church. And we do appreciate your leadership here in the North and South Carolina. And we are grateful to God for you. At this time, I'd like to present the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of North Carolina, Ms. Sherry Beasley. She is the 29th Chief Justice and a former District Court Judge in Cumberland County. And we have been very proud of her efforts that she's made since she's been in that seat. I present to you Chief Justice Beasley.
Thank you so much, Bishop Monroe. I'm truly delighted and honored to be here this evening. I know I'm so grateful to you for your friendship and for your support over the years. And I see Bishop Battle is on. I appreciate his support as well. And Bishop Walker and Bishop Crenshaw, I'm delighted to be here. I see my friend and our friend, Congressman G.K. Butterfield, and certainly Cal Cunningham. And to all of the clergy and pastors here this evening, I am Sherry Beasley. I'm the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of North Carolina. And I have a whole lot of friends here this evening. I'm very thankful for that. I've served as a judge now for 21 years. As Bishop Monroe mentioned, I served as a district court judge in Cumberland County for 10 years, presiding in all of our courts. I served on the Court of Appeals for 4 years, and I have served on the Supreme Court of North Carolina for 7 years, and as the Chief Justice for the last year and a half. I am the first African-American woman to serve as Chief Justice for the Supreme Court of North Carolina. I'm only one of 2 African-American women serving as Chief Justice in the nation. The other is Chief Justice Burnett Johnson, and she will retire in December. So we, for a whole host of reasons, got to get this right. As the Chief Justice, I lead the Supreme Court of North Carolina, and I also lead the entire judicial branch of government. So the Supreme Court has 7 members. I am proud to tell you that because of you and your empowered vote, we have the most diverse Supreme Court in the nation, with 3 African Americans, 3 women, and the first Jewish member in the court's 200-year history. And I also lead the entire judicial branch of government. So there are judges and district attorneys and clerks of court and public defenders and magistrates and court reporters. all over the state of North Carolina. We have more than 300 court facilities, and it's been my responsibility to lead and to lead courageously. I don't think it's an overstatement at all to say that justice is on the ballot. I hear people say that this is the most important election of our lives, and all of us here have lived long enough to know that every election is the most important election of our lives. It may be fair to say that it is certainly one of the most consequential elections of our lives. And so it is so important for all of us to make sure that the people around us know that this is the most important election, that it is a very important election. I want people to also know that North Carolina has the third longest ballot in the nation. So folks are going to need some help. And they also know to flip the ballot over. There are two sides to the ballot, and we certainly know that people will have some sense of what to do at the top of the ballot. They know how they feel about the presidential election and the election for U.S. Senate and for governor, but we want to make sure that people understand that every single office on the ballot impacts our everyday lives, whether we know it or not. I am asking that people are aware that the judicial elections are important. And certainly, as we are in the midst of this pandemic, and all of that is compounded by heightened racial tensions in North Carolina, we need to understand that it's important to know who the judges are and all of the elected officials in the judicial branch. When George Floyd died and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, I was the first Chief Justice in the nation to speak out, to recognize that as court leaders, we must acknowledge some very difficult histories in this state and in this nation, that it is the leadership of the Chief Justice who must acknowledge the rallying cry, that when people believe that there are two kinds of justice, and they're not just believing that there are two kinds of justice, we have the data to support that there are racial and gender disparities in outcomes in our courts. We just must do better. I'm prepared to offer that leadership, which I know has to be bold, and it must be courageous. And it must be spirited by knowing that it's the right thing to do. And so you'll be hearing more about my commission that we're going to be working on with the courts. And there are a whole lot of things that I'm working on with trying to restore some trust and confidence in our courts, because we know that people in North Carolina don't have it. If I could just offer a couple more things. I've worked really hard. We know that in North Carolina, we're the 9th largest state in the nation, population of more than 10 million. We have more than 1 million people in North Carolina who are driving with their licenses revoked, not because they have in some way committed a crime, but because when the fines and fees were assessed by the court initially, the folks couldn't pay the fines and fees then. Those fines and fees snowballed over the years, and it's not uncommon for people's licenses to be revoked for 5, 10, 15 years or more. So since I've been the Chief Justice, we've worked really, really hard with district attorneys and judges and have restored thousands of driver's licenses, because sometimes we take for granted what that means, but it can impact where you live, where you work, and a whole host of other things. So I'm excited about that possibility. And again, we have more than 1 million people in North Carolina who are eligible for expunctions. This is where somebody has been charged with offense but not convicted. Those offenses still appear on their records, and they have to jump through hoops to try to get those off. So we are also working with judges and DAs to expunge criminal records. That's how you restore trust and confidence, by giving people a real fair chance. Last thing I'll say is we have a Faith and Justice Alliance. When I became the Chief Justice, I knew it was important that we partner with clergy, that we are training clergy to identify legal issues and refer folks to legal assistance at no cost to them. We're also partnering with faith organizations and places of worship to hold legal clinics there to help people. These are folks who will never, ever be able to hire lawyers. So I look forward to partnering with everybody here this evening. We need you. And we need for justice to look differently. We need for justice to acknowledge that courts must be fair, and that leadership must come from the top, and it must come from the Chief Justice. So I am honored to be here this evening. As our friend and my friend, I saw her last night, Senator Kamala Harris, candidate for Vice President, says, I can't tell you who to vote for, but I will ask you who to pray for. And I'm asking for your prayers for this election. We got a lot of work to do, and I'm so excited and very thankful to be serving in this way and offering myself for continued service. Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you so much, Chief Justice, for those wonderful words of greetings. We're moving along. I do see that the candidate for U.S. Senate, James Calvin Cunningham, as we know him as Cal Cunningham, is with us, and I'd like for him to come and greet us at this time.
Bishop Monroe, I'm grateful for this opportunity. Bishop Walker, Bishop Crenshaw, particularly honored to be and see Bishop Battle. Bishop Battle's son, George III, and his wife, Renita, have been friends since we were at Carolina together. I'm always grateful to be with Congressman Butterfield, grateful for his mentorship and guidance, and Chief Justice Beasley, who is making us so proud as Chief Justice, the leading work that she's doing, critical to delivering justice here in North Carolina. To the rest of clergy and pastors and those who are listening in today, I'm Cal Cunningham. I'm going to replace Tom Tillis in the United States Senate with your help and your support. The issues in front of us are as important and as critical as they've ever been. We heard that from Chief Justice Beasley. Let me just remind our listeners a little bit about the person who we need to replace. Tom Tillis, in the push and pull of Washington politics, has decided that there are things more important than representing us. He's caved into the partisan interests in Washington, Mitch McConnell and this president. He's caved into the special interests, putting his big corporate donors in pharma ahead of reducing the cost of prescription drugs, taking the oil and gas money and not working for the people of our state. But we also know him for blocking Medicaid here in North Carolina. He proudly passed that law, standing in the way of Governor Cooper from extending health coverage to hundreds of thousands of our people. He cut unemployment benefits as the speaker, cut hundreds of millions of dollars in education, and passed the voter suppression measure, that when it was struck down by the courts famously wrote he had targeted African Americans with almost surgical precision. This is the person who I seek to replace in the United States Senate. A little bit about me. I grew up in the small town of Lexington, was educated at UNC, live in Raleigh today, served overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan with the paratroopers and special operations forces from Fort Bragg. I'm a proud North Carolinian. My roots go very deep here, and I love this state. I recognize that representing North Carolina and the 10.5 million people that call it home, including the more than 2.5 million who are Black and the million who are brown, means that I've got to build partnerships and relationships, that any one person can only do this in relation with others, being held accountable by others. And so what we are doing today is important for the next 35 days, but it's even more important for the work ahead. I want you to hold me accountable. I want you to have me back, call me in front of your churches and your followers, the people that listen to you, and make me answer to account for how we use this U.S. Senate seat. Because you see my name on the ballot, Cal Cunningham, but the fact of the matter is it's our health care that is on the ballot. You have a choice between somebody who's going to fight to extend quality, affordable care and bring down the cost of prescription drugs, as I will, and an incumbent who has been on the side of the insurance industry and big pharma, who voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Jobs are on the ballot, and the question of whether we will have $15 an hour as a minimum wage, a living wage in every community, versus an opponent in Tom Tillis who doesn't think there should be a minimum wage at all. A candidate who believes passionately in the power of education to lift people up and to create opportunity, versus an incumbent who put Betsy DeVos in charge of public education in this nation. Of course, he had taken over $70,000 in campaign donations from her family. a candidate who's going to work to connect all of North Carolina with broadband, building on the infrastructure and the roads, the bridges, the hospitals and schools that our state badly needs, versus an incumbent who has not gotten the job done, and a person who's passionate about criminal justice reform and working to extend justice after what we have seen in America, reminding us once again that we have not accomplished the more perfect union that is written into the aspirations of this country, but is going to require us to work shoulder to shoulder to accomplish. So I'd be grateful for your help and your support. I look forward to a partnership and a relationship. And I'll tell you this, I'm fighting for every vote. I take no single voter for granted, and I'll work hard to reach out and earn that respect and that vote, because it's a almost, as John Lewis said, almost sacred is our vote. And if it weren't so valuable, the other side wouldn't be fighting so hard to take it away. We need to reauthorize that Voting Rights Act and name it after John Lewis. We need to work to heal this democracy, to make sure the voices of our people are what's heard loudest in Washington, rather than the corporate interests that are there today. The path from here to success requires a lot of work. Please help amplify that work. I'd be honored to go to work for the people of our state. I'll give it my all, and I hope that you'll hold me accountable to it as well. With that, thank you for the opportunity to be with you this evening. Thank you for the work that you do. I hope that all of those who are here and participating stay healthy and stay safe and continue to live with God's grace.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham, for your wonderful greetings. And we'll thank you for your presence. And we will give support to all of you who have spoken thus far. It is my privilege at this time to present Congressman Emanuel Cleaver, of the 5th District in Missouri, former mayor of Kansas City, Missouri, and former pastor of the St. James United Methodist Church in Kansas City. And we are grateful to have him with us now. Congressman Cleaver.
Thank you, Bishop. Let me, first of all, thank you and apologize. We had votes here on the first day of the week. And so, in fact, people are still up there voting now. And Whip Clyburn would love to have been here, but he obviously has to not only vote, he has to make sure that everybody else votes correctly. And then I think they have him scheduled on 342 other events that he tries to make every evening. I don't know how he functions. But thank you so much, Bishop. And to all of the pastors, I want to just say to them that 638 years ago, Bishop Monroe and I were young pastors getting started in Kansas City together. He was at Metropolitan AME Zion, and I was been sent to the only church I ended up serving during my 37-year pastorate, and it was at St. James United Methodist Church. And we had a little posse back in those days, and I was thrilled when I read that he had become a bishop. I should have recognized that he was bishop material back in the day, but I'm so pleased that we have an opportunity to talk with the pastors, and that Congressman Butterfield, Clyburn, and I thought that it was critically important for us to touch base with the pastors and to also make sure that you had a clear picture, and I think you do, of what all is at stake and what we need pastors to do. Look, we've lost the Supreme Court seat. And when we lost that seat with this new appointment by Donald Trump, we've lost the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act. We will not, under the current structure of the Supreme Court, get pre-clearance put back into the law. I think we had a chance to try to make corrections based on the last Supreme Court decision. But right now, the Justice Department will not intervene. And the perfect example is my alumni. I'm a graduate of Prairie View A&M, and many of you may already know that Prairie View is kind of isolated. In fact, it's in Prairie View, Texas. but there's a little town about 25 miles away, and it's called Hempstead in Waller County. And so before we had voter suppression, the students of Prairie View could go to the student union and vote. We have about almost 6,000 students there at PV. And now, in an attempt to prevent many of them from voting, they moved the voting precinct. That couldn't have been done on the previous Voting Rights Act. Now they can do it because of the pre-clearance component taken out of the legislation. So that's happening all around the country in other ways. The whole point is to try to dissuade African Americans from voting. I think that Whip Clyburn has been suggesting to people, and I think he's absolutely right. I've been repeating it back in Missouri, and that is, we need to vote early. You know, even if you are planning to vote absentee, if you can get somebody to put you in the car, get your parishioners to get in a car and drive down to the Board of Election Commissioners and submit your absentee vote. You know, unfortunately, there are reasons and strong reasons for us to believe that if possible, the Republicans under the leadership of Donald Trump, who has, we've had an involuntary and disruptive takeover of the Republican Party. And since then, they have fallen in line. They do whatever he asks that they do. And you have seen him on television. You'll probably hear him tonight at the debate talking about the ballots, and we got to stop the ballots. You know, I don't think it's paranoia for us to say that what he plans to do is if somehow he can be ahead of the votes on Tuesday night, November the 3rd, and that because all of the ballots will not have been counted. And then when he loses a day later or 2 days later, if it goes that way, he'll say they took the election. You know, I am on Homeland Security, the Homeland Security Committee, and we are constantly talking with the FBI director and others, and with a lot of our meetings in the SCIF, which means that it's classified material. But what I can tell you is that the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations, Director Wray, has said that the Russians are going to interfere if they can in the election. Now, it's not like what many people think, that they're going to try to steal votes by manipulating the voting booths, voting machines. What they want to do is disrupt the election by doing it online and using bots to send erroneous information out all over the country about voting. And they want us to fight each other, and they'll have bots in there trying to turn Black people against Black people, and Black people against Democrats, and white people against Black people. That's the way they disrupt. And all you have to do is look at the last election, and you can see that some of that, in fact, did happen. We had a 12% drop in the Black vote between President Obama's last election and Hillary Clinton's election. And much of that, we believe, is a result of voter suppression, which is an ongoing issue that the Russians are simply going to support and promote. Now, there are some other bad actors. I think Saudi Arabia, there's no question that China is a bad actor, but nobody is in it for a person. I think all our enemies, Iran and so forth, they just want us to fight on the inside. And if you look at what's been happening in the country around issues with police misconduct, we have turned on ourselves. And if you're a president who's calling protesters, you know, hoodlums and mobs, then, you know, he's able to touch and reach some people, those people who are, I think, unbendingly supporting him will believe whatever he says. And I think it's critically important that we tell people that they cannot believe everything they see online. In fact, they'd be smart if they believe very little of what they are able to see online. Director Ray has played it straight. In our committee hearing last week, I said that openly and publicly. I think Chairman Benny Thompson would say the same thing if he were here this evening. He's one of the few people in the administration who has played it straight. So in spite of Donald Trump going around saying that we are having all kinds of problems in voting and so forth, Director Ray publicly at our committee hearing last week said that is not true, that there is no appreciable voter misconduct in this country, that we have a rather clean process. And if you have to prosecute 9 people out of about 20 million votes, that's almost a problem that is non-existent. And look, I think that Donald Trump and his minions are very pleased and proud whenever they can see a disruption. And unfortunately, we had some people who would come out at night, and everybody who threw a brick into a window was helping Donald Trump. And we do have white supremacists. And at our hearing last week, that was one of the issues that was lifted up. And the Director Ray said, yes, we have white supremacists, and they are constantly being monitored in this country, and that they are a major problem, in spite of the fact that Donald Trump has tried to say that there's a problem with somebody, some group called Antifa. Now, I don't know Antifa from my Aunt Edna down in Texas. So all I know is that all of a sudden I heard this word about 3 months ago. And I think if they had an opportunity to try to create as they usually do, a boogeyman, that would be it. But that's not a problem. What we've got to do is go out and vote in large numbers and vote often. And if we do that, I think that in November we will have recaptured this country. We have a lot of problems that we must address. We're here trying to address those problems. We're fortunate. I think we have good leadership. And to all the AME Zions, you'd probably be proud to know that we have some very good African-American leadership all through Congress. And one of the things that people don't like is that when you look at, I mean, the whole country would know that Jim Clyburn is the whip. But what you probably don't know are all of the African-Americans who are the chairs of committees and subcommittees. I mean, the Homeland Security, one of the most significant committees on the Hill, is chaired by Benny Thompson of Mississippi, a Black man. The Financial Services Committee is chaired by Maxine Waters, a Black woman from Los Angeles. And Education and Workforce, or whatever it's called, Commerce and Education, Commerce, or whatever it is, Workforce, Bobby Scott from Virginia. I mean, and then there are all of these subcommittees that we also head, and we will have even more in the next Congress. And I don't think that's going to make the Republicans particularly happy. Hopefully it'll make Black America happy, because we can then begin to get change. Now we're going to get a stimulus package. I doubt if we can do it before the election in November, but Jay Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve Board, has said, he's a Republican appointee. He has said, we've got to have a stimulus. Ben Bernanke, the previous chair of the Federal Reserve, has said, we've got to have a stimulus package. And Bernanke was appointed by a Republican. He has since left the Republican Party because of how far to the right they had moved. But he is saying the same thing. So I think that will help all of us, and it'll help your parishioners. It'll help the small businesses. We've got to work now on getting those loans forgiven. Many of those companies in South Carolina, North Carolina, Missouri, they took those loans, and they said there would be a chance that they would be forgiven. Well, as of today, we don't have any of those forgiven. But we are planning to make sure that if we're able to get that package through, that loan forgiveness will be an inseparable part, because many of our Black businesses that shuttered may not even open, and so we got a lot of work to do. But look, I know where the power is. I know where the juice comes from. Historically, it's come from the Church of Jesus Christ. It's come from, as it relates to civil rights, from Black preachers standing up and saying what they needed to say, because they didn't depend on anybody white for their survival. the black preacher has been free in this country for over a century, free to say and speak. And that's why many of the black preachers ended up being leaders, because they were free. Somebody else taking a position that they were a school principal, they get fired. If it were somebody who worked at a bank, they'd be unhired. So the black church is critically important. You can speak to those people, tell them to get out and vote. If they can vote next week, it will be to the benefit of the country and the world. We have the most unfit megalomaniac in the White House that we could possibly have had, and he's got to go. If he stays in office, he is a danger to democracy. And so I want to say to all of you that, I still believe that God sits on the throne. And as long as God sits on the throne, it means that he's against Rome. And when he's against Rome, we stand up and say, the blood of the prophets flow through my veins, and that is wrong. And so this is what we have to do right now. I appreciate the bishop giving us an opportunity to be with you tonight. I called him, and we hadn't spoken to each other in years. And I went home and told my wife that if the bishop had an opening at some churches that were open that he could fill, that I was going to ask him to give me an appointment. So if he can get me an appointment, Bishop, I sure would appreciate it. I'll pay my conference claim. You get me an appointment.
Thank you, Congressman Cleaver. And I just want to express my appreciation to everyone who has been on this program tonight. Bishop Walker, as you represented the CME Church, my good friend of long years, Bishop Crenshaw, the president of the Board of Bishops, who came up with this program, Project 100. We thank him for his leadership. To our Governor Cooper, who spoke to us tonight, to Congressman G. Kenneth Butterfield. We're grateful for his contributions. We've known him. He's a tremendous personality. To Judge Sherry Beasley, we just embrace her and thank God for what she's doing in her role. To Cal Cunningham, we thank you. We talked on the phone some time ago, and I said I would be supportive of him, and we thank you for being on with us tonight. And to Emmanuel Cleaver, who we worked together, got him elected as a mayor of Kansas City, and now he left us. I left first, but he came afterwards, and we are grateful to God. And if I can find a small church for you, I'll see what I can do to help you out. But we are grateful to God for your leadership. And to the senior bishop of our church, Bishop George Edward Battle Jr. I am so grateful to see him, to be a part of us tonight. He still is a great leader in our church, the senior bishop, and we praise God for him. Okay. And at this time, we're going to ask him to give us our closing prayer. Okay. Bishop Battle.
Thank you. Thank you. The eternal God, we thank you for Bishop Monroe, Bishop Crenshaw, Bishop Walker. Thank you for our friend, Justice. We thank you for all of those that are around this table through Zoom. Thank you for Justice Beasley. Thank you for Cal Cunningham. Thank you for the influence of all of those around this table. I thank God for me having given out 40 certificates this past Friday to our ministers in the different organizations in our churches. And some of them are ladies, so you can be assured something good gonna happen with those departments. And we have 12 presiding elders, and they're all excited about what's going to happen. We're going to retire the president and elect a new one. And we're certainly going to keep Justice Beasley in her place. And God knows we're going to give Tom Tillis another job with IBM. And thank God for G.K. Butterfield, who been on the go. I can't tell you how long, but he's a strong leader. And we're glad to have him as part of our team. And thank God for all of you who are here. And may the grace of God go with you and his power sustain you until we meet again. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all for joining us. And I say, as I said in my opening statement, don't be weary of evildoers. Vote them out of office. May God bless you and keep you.
That's right.